Yo guys, what's good? Now lately I've been getting hit up on Instagram and Twitter. People asking me, how did I get into sales? How long have I been in sales? How did I become a closer for Dan Henry? All these different things. So in this video, I'm going to give the backstory from when I was last running my agency, last year in August, when I was living in Australia, up until this year, May 2024, where I'm now living in Argentina and traveling around South America. So let's get into it. So essentially, last year in August was when I was running my advertising agency. That was co-founded with another person, and we had different visions on how we sort of wanted to run that. And because of those different visions, we sort of just shook hands and went on our own separate paths. Now that was a mistake because I didn't really have a proper plan in place as to what I was going to do after that. And that's where I really fucked up, because the 4 months that followed, I was sort of just the degenerate playing video games. And for those of you who understand video games, I was just playing a bunch of Warzone, slide canceling, bunny hopping, jumping around like a cracked bunny rabbit, just playing a lot of Warzone, right? I had like a 3.8 or 3.9 KD, tens of thousands of kills, and also thousands of hours invested into that. And I was even just playing tournaments for money, like a couple $100 here and there. I think one tournament I won like 2K. It was just in a local Australian tournament. So I was full in the deep end, just playing a bunch of video games for the 4 months that followed. Now, also throughout that 4 months, the main source of money was 1 to 2 clients that I had from my real estate social media marketing agency, which is the one that I started back in 2020, which is a video for another day. Throughout that period, I really realized that I needed to get serious. Like, I needed to get serious about life, like fuck off the video games, get rid of all that bullshit and just start getting serious. So throughout that period, I chatted with my friend Connor Healy. So he runs RSA. It's a program that helps people go from like 9 to 5 and get like an appointment setting or a closer job. So that's what I jumped into, paid him some money and started role playing daily, like every single day, a couple of hours every single day for an entire month. And throughout that process, I actually landed a role as a closer for a lead generation offer, where essentially they helped tradies generate leads and appointments using a bunch of different systems. Because I was making such little income, because I'd shut the agency down, I wasn't really doing much, it started to create tension around the house. And from August to December, I really did nothing. And I'd sort of just been playing video games. So up until December, going into, I guess, the start of this year, there was a bit of tension, and it got to the point where things weren't the best because financially we were struggling, because as I mentioned, we really weren't doing much. We had quote unquote been trying to fix things between me and my girlfriend at that time. But it got to a point where she felt a certain type of way because I felt like she just wanted to be left alone, but then also I felt, I guess, a bit of resentment on my end because I was the only one really trying to fix things. So I was trying to fix things, she just wanted to be left alone, and then it sort of just created more of a divide. So it got to a point for us where we were just like, you know what, let's just call it what it is, and like let's sort of just separate here. It was essentially like 6.5 years we were together, going on 7 years. So I was like, well shit, what am I gonna do? And I started looking at my options. I was like, maybe I want to go to Thailand, maybe I want to go to Bali. So I started looking at these different places that I could go, different places that I could really go ahead and travel to. And I put into a group chat, like with one of the boys, not just one, of few of the boys, essentially saying, hey, who wants to go to Thailand or Bali? And my friend at the time, Jacob, who is living here, not in the same apartment, but in the same building as where I am now, he messaged me saying, come to Argentina, Buenos Aires. And at this point, I'm like, well, where the fuck is that? So I looked on my Google map, started looking at flights. Flights were expensive. I realized I didn't have the money to actually even get there. Also realized that the flight was going to be like 18 hours to get there, and just there's just a bunch of hurdles. So instead of just complaining about my situation, what I actually did is I sold everything I had. Sold my entire setup, my standing desk, my PC, my speakers, my keyboard, all the things that I didn't really need. And also I had the latest and greatest phone at the time, which was worth like, if you sold it, it was like $1,200. So I sold that and then bought like a lesser phone for like $200 off the marketplace, because I was just trying to be resourceful. I needed to get money together to get myself over to that side of the world, because I made the decision, yep, I'm gonna go, just need to get the money together. So sold all my crap, and once I had sold everything, I bought this laptop, which is the one I'm recording from, and then I also bought a ticket, and I had like, after I sold everything, I had like $600 left to my name. So I moved to Argentina. I caught a flight, right? Went over to Argentina, and I stayed on my friend's couch. So I was living on his couch for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And mind you, throughout this period, the first 2 weeks, I really didn't make any money. And as I mentioned, I came over with $600 and I started getting down to my last money. I was like, well, shit, this isn't going as planned. So for the first 2 weeks, obviously the doubts started to seep in. I was still role playing, by the way. I was still role playing, still doing the reps, still training, all these different things. But it's just my external reality wasn't showcasing the results from the work that I've been putting in. But then the week that followed, I ended up closing a 12K deal on that tradie offer that I'm talking to you about. And also, as well, at 2 a.m. in the morning, I had a conversation with a friend, Connor, and he was telling me about how he had a podcast with this big guy. And at that time, it was Dan Henry. At the end of that podcast, Dan Henry said, hey, do you need any sales guys? Like, do you know anyone that could help me close? Blah, 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 blah. In that 2-hour call that I had with Connor, towards the end of that call, he was like, hey, like, do you want to like take this role on? Like, do you want to see if I can get you hooked up? Essentially, he made the connection with Dan's COO, Joe. I had an interview with him, had an interview the following day, and then I essentially secured that role. So shout out to my boy Connor, because the only reason I'm on that offer was because Connor actually hooked that up from a podcast that he did with Dan. So in terms of timeline, now we're essentially at the start of March, okay? I just made that sale. I'd also just, that 12K package sale where I got 1,200 in comms, and also just started my new role working for Dan Henry. And when I started that week, I actually went on to make 7K my first week on that offer. And on the 3rd of March, I used that $1,200 that I'd gotten from the 12K sale I made, and I got my own place. So after about 3.5 weeks of sleeping on my friend's couch, I spent all the money I had on getting my own place. Now, anyone that's lived with a friend, no matter how much you love them, there's going to be things that you don't like about them, like in terms of living with them, and there's going to be things that they don't like about you. So sometimes it's just best to get your own space, no matter how much you love the person, because you don't want to create, I guess, a weird kind of friction between you and your friend because of things that get under your guys' skin. So I got my own place, but I pretty much spent every single dollar I had to get my own place. So shout out to my boy Jacob, because what he actually did was we went to the grocery store and he did a full grocery haul for me, and he set me up here. So he shouted my groceries, and then from there, as I mentioned, I made like 7K in my first week working for Dan Henry, and I requested that was paid out instantly because obviously I needed the money. So what sort of happened from there is I finished off that month of March making like $10,300 in commissions, somewhere around that. I can't remember the exact figure, but I ended up making 10K a month that month. And to give you guys a bit of context, the month before that, I made $0 in sales. So I went from $0 in sales to the next month making 10K a month in comms. And now even like fast forward to, I guess, the month just past, April. Pretty sure I finished April off around like the 7 or 8K a month mark, because there's a bunch of changes actually happening with the offer. Like we're testing out new offers, also making changes to the sales process, a whole bunch of things. So again, like the month that just passed, I made like 8K, and I actually invested in some sales training with Josh Lyons. So that's the Unicorn Closer Mastermind, because there's a few things that I can tighten up with my process in order to get bigger. And essentially what's going to happen now is I've been in Argentina for roughly 2 months, and next month I'm going to be going off to Brazil. So I'm going to go to Sao Paulo for a little bit, probably check out Buzios for a bit. So I'm sort of just going to use this channel. I'm not going to post 2-3 pointless videos every single week. I think it just makes sense to have less output but higher quality videos, and that's what I'm going to dedicate myself to, higher quality instead of just more quantity. So for those of you who had a bunch of questions as to how I got to where I got to, how I got into the role, all those different things, now you know. See you guys.